In a quiet little town in Pennsylvania, life moves along serenely. Milton Robinson, a 79-year-old widower and a respected member of the community, lives the modest life of a retiree. He faithfully shows up at the town council meetings, where he consistently brings up familiar matters. These include altering the town's motto and adding another pedestrian crossing close to his residence. On a warm summer morning, following his routine presentation of these ideas, Milton returns to his house. He carries on with his everyday tasks, enjoys his supper, and retires for the night. When morning breaks, he tends to his plants and makes sure to provide nourishment for the birds. Later in the day, Milton's adult daughter, Denise, arrives to assist him with his monthly bills. With no recent updates from his elder son, Tim, who lives far away and seldom keeps in touch, they tend to their financial matters. Denise takes a brief break to use the restroom, where she stumbles upon a jar of peas. This discovery raises her concern for her father's well-being. Despite Milton's assurances that he's doing well, Denise gently suggests he consider visiting a neurologist for a checkup. After all, she reasons, his age could make forgetfulness a potential sign of encroaching dementia. However, Milton vehemently opposes the idea of consulting any doctors. With Denise off to work, he's left on his own, his only companions being his cherished detective shows and a solitary dinner. One night, an unexpected commotion jolts Milton from his usual routine. Rushing outside, he's met with an unusual sight. A flying saucer has landed awkwardly in his backyard. Alarmed, Milton dials the rescue service, but their response leaves him flabbergasted. They believe his call is nothing more than a joke and promptly dismiss his plea for help. Disheartened and with no assistance forthcoming, they stop answering his calls. Desperate to share his astonishing discovery, Milton tries to contact Denise, but she's unavailable. A restless night follows. The next day, Milton makes his way to the town council meeting, sticking to his routine of discussing the town's slogan and the need for an additional crosswalk. As night falls again, strange sounds emanate from his backyard once more. Braving the odd occurrences, he ventures outside and is astonished to find an injured extraterrestrial being in his own backyard. Once again, Milton makes an attempt to contact his daughter, but Denise remains elusive, leaving only a voicemail. He anxiously waits for her call, but it never comes. The following morning, he adheres to his usual routine by attending the town meeting. During the meeting, his friend Sandy takes the floor and presents a fresh project aimed at engaging with the town's youth. Sandy has taken the initiative to put up posters all around the town, hoping that someone would come to hear her stories and seek her advice. She is enthusiastic about becoming a part of the lives of young individuals who may be feeling isolated and in need of a friend. During his turn, Milton follows his usual script, beginning with the town's motto and the crosswalk. However, he deviates from the norm by recounting the bizarre UFO incident that damaged his flowers and shattered the bird feeder. Regrettably, his audience dismisses his account, viewing it as the ramblings of an elderly man. Two active retirees, Sandy and Joyce, offer some counsel. They kindly suggest to Milton that he avoid bringing up the UFO topic at the meeting in the future, as it may hinder the town's willingness to take suggestions from elderly residents seriously. Sandy takes it a step further by offering to give Milton a ride home and reassures him that she's always close by, ready to assist. This, unfortunately, sparks anger in Milton, as he feels like he's being treated as if he's a lunatic. That evening, Milton decides to revisit his backyard to check on the extraterrestrial being he had initially believed to be lifeless. To his surprise, the creature stirs, raising its head and gazing at him with a plaintive expression. Filled with compassion, Milton tenderly covers the unconscious extraterrestrial with a blanket once more and leaves a glass of water nearby. By the following morning, Milton discovers the extraterrestrial still wrapped in the blanket, appearing to shiver at his back door. Milton extends an invitation for the extraterrestrial to come inside the house, where it's much warmer. Inside, he's unsure of how to handle this entirely new and unusual situation, having never encountered anything like it before. He notices that the visitor has drained the entire glass of water, so he promptly fetches another one. Feeling the need to offer the extraterrestrial some nourishment, he prepares a tray with an assortment of foods he finds in his home. However, the extraterrestrial's preference surprises him. It chooses only an apple. In response, Milton heads to the store to buy more apples, explaining to the cashier that they are intended for an extraterrestrial. Unfortunately, the cashier's response is one of skepticism, treating Milton as though he's a person with delusional beliefs. Upon his return home, Milton settles onto the living room couch and listens to news about the search for a weather satellite that's crashed. However, his attention is soon diverted by the sudden appearance of the extraterrestrial, who appears to be feeling much better and can even walk. Milton warmly shows the being around his home, providing a guest room and introducing it to television. His personal preference is detective shows, as he appreciates the uncertainty of their endings. Milton takes the time to share photos of his family with the silent yet attentive extraterrestrial. Regrettably, his wife is no longer with them, and his son has relocated to California. His daughter, though, visits him occasionally. As the evening progresses, the old man recollects the dance show and sits in front of the TV, inviting the extraterrestrial to join him. On that particular day, the store clerk informs Denise about her father's peculiar remarks regarding the extraterrestrial. Concerned, Denise decides to pay him a visit during her lunch break. Milton greets Denise at the door, and as is her usual concern, she insists that he should see a doctor due to her deep worries about his mental well-being. Reluctantly, Milton agrees, and Denise rushes off. Just as she departs, the phone rings. It's Sandy, urgently in need of a printer, and Milton invites her over to print the necessary documents. Sandy arrives, and upon entering, she spots the extraterrestrial. Milton introduces them, showing her the crash site. Sandy is taken aback, but emphasizes the importance of keeping this situation a secret for Milton's safety, citing the treatment of extraterrestrials by authorities when they appear on television. She advises him not to let anyone into his home except for her. After Sandy leaves, Joyce has already noticed her car parked outside Milton's house, sparking her curiosity about what's unfolding. Meanwhile, on TV, the calls persist for the public to join in the search for the crashed satellite. As time passes, the extraterrestrial continues to reside in Milton's house, spending moments watching their favorite TV shows together. One morning, it surprises Milton by offering a piece of paper adorned with a drawing of a cat. This heartfelt gesture deeply moves Milton, since it's a picture created just for him. In the following days, the extraterrestrial busies itself with repairing its spaceship. It seems to have fully recuperated and is preparing to return to its own world. Meanwhile, Milton visits a neurologist and undergoes a series of tests, experiencing some frustration due to errors in a few of them. During this period, Sandy keeps the extraterrestrial company, sharing her grievances about her daughter who moved to the West Coast and now resides with a friend. She's genuinely upset that her daughter rarely visits and doesn't bring her only grandchild along. Meanwhile, the doctor, upon learning about Milton's forgetfulness and his tales of extraterrestrials, comes to a troubling conclusion that Milton's cognitive abilities are deteriorating rapidly. The doctor suggests considering outside help for him. This news deeply upsets Milton, and he angrily storms out of the doctor's office after shouting at his daughter Sandy, who had been reading a children's book to the extraterrestrial. She tries to ask questions, but the old man retreats to his room. Later, Milton discovers the extraterrestrial near its spaceship and shares his grievances about his daughter's intention to place him in a nursing home. He also reflects on his lack of contact with his son, feeling remorseful about being a less than ideal father. The extraterrestrial listens attentively, setting aside its tools as it listens to the old man's emotional outpouring. Following this, Milton leaves a voicemail for his son, sharing details about his life and Denise's affairs, hoping to pique his interest. The next day, Sandy brings a t-shirt for the extraterrestrial, considering it uncomfortable for them to remain unclothed. She also proposes giving the extraterrestrial a name, suggesting Jules. Milton initially gets agitated by what he deems as frivolous suggestions, but eventually consents to his friend's ideas. Meanwhile, Joyce, upon hearing about the government's reward offer for information about the crashed satellite, pays a visit to Milton's house. Peering through the window, she spots the extraterrestrial. Now, she's also privy to Milton's secret and suggests naming the extraterrestrial Harry. Sandy encourages Milton to accept the fact that Joyce is joining their circle, even though he's quite frustrated with the overly curious lady. She then shows Milton pictures of the cat drawings that Jules has created for him. Joyce has a theory that Jules might be attempting to convey something to the elderly man. This hunch is based on the fact that all of Jules's drawings feature cats. However, Milton remains skeptical and refuses to entertain the idea. In the meantime, the government is flooded with numerous calls reporting various unusual incidents. One day, a concerned woman files a complaint about a man who spends hours gazing at a rocket in his yard. FBI agents promptly respond and head to the provided address, only to discover a homemade rocket and a contented man standing beside it. Simultaneously, Joyce pays a visit to Milton to spend time with the extraterrestrial. She even brings along a t-shirt as a gift and offers the being some apples. During this visit, Sandy receives a call from a young man who had shown interest in her posters. He comes over to her house, and the cheerful woman warmly invites him in for tea. As Joyce engages in conversation with the extraterrestrial, she shares details about her life in the bustling city, mentioning that she had even performed in concerts due to her impressive singing skills. Sandy strikes up a conversation with the extraterrestrial, and Joyce suggests singing to entertain their guest. As Joyce entertains, the young man asks for permission to use the restroom. However, when she follows him upstairs, she discovers him in the act of stealing her jewelry. Upon being confronted, he threatens her, and a physical altercation ensues where he tries to strangle her. In this dire moment, the extraterrestrial experiences a vision of the events and uses telepathic abilities to make the man's head explode. This puzzling event raises the suspicions of the FBI, who are actively engaged in the search for the crashed spaceship. Responding to police questions, Sandy suddenly comprehends who saved her from certain death. She rushes to Milton's house, embracing Joyce and tearfully thanking him for saving her life. As the retirees discuss the potential danger posed by the extraterrestrial, they conclude that it seems to be only a threat to those with harmful intentions. Meanwhile, the FBI agents remain bewildered, unable to understand how and why the criminal's head could have burst, prompting them to keep a close watch on Sandy from that day forward. Denise encounters the elderly group at the store, once again raising the issue of the apples Milton bought. However, Milton skillfully dodges the conversation. Later, the group gathers at Milton's house for lunch, and Sandy detects an unusual odor. Upon venturing outside, they stumble upon a dead cat that Jules apparently had brought there. Connecting the dots, the retirees begin to realize that the extraterrestrial has a specific need for cats, which is why there are now only 6 instead of the 7 in the picture. Milton decides to reach out to Denise, hoping to find out where she disposes of the deceased cats in her clinic. This question rattles her completely, and she fails to provide a clear answer. Milton and Sandy decide to take a drive around the town streets because cats often meet their unfortunate end under car wheels. While on the road, Milton inquires about Sandy's husband's illness, which ultimately led to his passing, and she opens up about the loneliness she's been experiencing. She begins asking questions, emphasizing the importance of moving forward. However, at one point, Milton asks her to pull over, and this act is observed by FBI agents as the elderly couple places a deceased cat into the trunk. On that day, they discover 2 more deceased cats, and Joyce pledges to track down the remaining ones. While the FBI agents eavesdrop on the private conversations of Milton's close ones, they hear Denise discussing her father's peculiar behavior with her brother. At the same moment, Joyce arrives with 3 more cats she discovered in different parts of the town, leaving just 1 more missing. However, as the agents knock on the door, the elderly folks opt to hide and refrain from answering. Eventually, the agents depart, leaving the group to realize they need to act quickly. In the midst of the urgency, Milton recollects Joyce's deaf, blind, and immobile cat, which had been overlooked. Joyce feels slighted and departs, but Sandy follows her, offering an apology for Milton's brusqueness. Joyce acknowledges the truth in Sandy's words, realizing that it's long overdue to end the cat's suffering. She brings the animal, and the extraterrestrial tenderly puts it to eternal sleep. Then, it covers the remains with a material, and a remarkable transformation begins as they start to merge into a single entity. In the end, a radiant object materializes in front of the group, which serves as the fuel for Jules's spaceship. The saucer gracefully ascends into the sky and hovers at the center of the yard, an occurrence instantly detected by the FBI's monitoring equipment. The retirees understand that the time for farewell has arrived. Joyce presents Jules with a souvenir globe featuring a cityscape inside. Sandy offers him a sweater she knitted, and Milton hands over his driver's license along with a photo. However, just as they're about to embark with the extraterrestrial, the phone rings inside the house. Milton answers and hears Denise's voice on the other end. She suggests a meeting on Saturday, where they'll share a meal and she'll give him a haircut, recognizing that they've been quarreling, and it's time to make amends. At that very moment, as agents knock on the door, Milton rushes into the yard, and they only catch a glimpse of the departing saucer, with 3 Earthlings who have joined in the last moment. The spaceship lands not far from the town to ensure the elderly are safely disembarked, bidding them a peaceful farewell. Milton embraces the extraterrestrial, expressing his gratitude for the invitation to travel together. However, he ultimately decides he can't leave behind his home and loved ones. Jules enters the spaceship and takes off, while the elderly folks wave their goodbyes. Time passes, and Milton continues to live in his home, visited by Sandy and Joyce. The elderly often reminisce about Jules, Harry, and hope that he hasn't forgotten them either. One night, Milton's yard is bathed in a brilliant light, and the old man realizes he has guests.